Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 57. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Welcome back to the show this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, as we are in this lull getting ready for the Bengals game on Sunday. A really critical game for both sides. Maybe the Bengals slightly more than Pittsburgh, but certainly a game neither team wants and really can afford to lose. So probably a shorter show today with this mini bye week. Have the Tomlin Tuesday, but a little less to talk about than our typical Wednesday show coming off a usual Sunday game. But Dave, how you doing? Thanksgiving tomorrow should be a good day for all of us.
Yeah, and I say this all the time. My favorite day, single day of the year. I like it more than my birthday. I love it obviously more than Christmas. I'm not a big Christmas person. I'm not into all that Happy New Year and 4th of July stuff and all. We've got it's become an annual thing for us. We load the fridge with stuff from honey baked ham and get started with the first plates probably a little bit before 10 out here in Vegas, and eat all day and watch football, and just a fantastic, once again, it's my favorite time of year. So I'm certainly in a good mood and obviously looking forward to this Sunday game against the Bengals. It's, I put a little quip out on Twitter yesterday, and this is a big game, and it's a big game for the Bengals with their record right now. Look, we talked about the rest of their schedule, and if they ran the table, obviously with two of those games against the Steelers, they could still be in this thing. I think even if they lost to the Steelers on Sunday, they still mathematically, if they ran the table and got some help, they could be in. But this would really, really dampen the spirits of the Bengals. It would be it's a huge gut check. I view it as for the Steelers coming off of a very disappointing road loss to the Browns. Obviously, this is the third game of a 4-game AFC North stretch. You got Hard Knocks taking all this in. The Steelers lose this game, and the Ravens beat I think they got the Eagles this week, which that should be a good ball game. If the Ravens win that, there's going to be a lot of rumblings, I think, in Pittsburgh, because you essentially let the Bengals hang around in this thing. You've got you would have 5, interesting games after that. One of those obviously against the Browns, another one against the Ravens and the Bengals, and then you got the Eagles game, which is going to be tough, and then the Chiefs game in there as well too. So this is a pretty monumental game coming up here for not only the Steelers but the Bengals as well. I look forward to continuing diving deeper into the tape this evening, and on into Thanksgiving and talking about it on Friday. So, but with that, Mike Tomlin spoke to the media on Tuesday, a little bit later than normal, and we've got some things to talk about ahead of the breakdown of Bengals Steelers.
We do, and well said and summarized by you. Mentioned it, I think, on the Monday show. Going to get the Bengals best in this one because their season is literally on the line for this game and their next 6 should they continue or at least be able to pull off a victory against the Steelers this weekend. But Pittsburgh means a ton for them to secure that AFC North game, that bounce back opportunity to stay ahead of the Ravens in the division race, all the things that you mentioned there. Dave, before we get into what Mike Tomlin had to say, as you said in that later press conference on Tuesday, one housekeeping move. Old friend Julius Welschof is back. He signed to the practice squad, the rookie linebacker from Michigan by way of Charlotte, or I should say Charlotte by way of Michigan, signed in right after April's draft. Had a really good preseason and was pretty impressive for now. He was the international exemption player, although he's been stateside for several years, spent 4 years at Michigan, 2023 at Charlotte. So he wasn't brand new to football like some of the international guys, Travis Clayton in Buffalo, etc. But he had gotten hurt in the finale with, I think, a knee injury against Detroit and was waived and injured and rehabbed and brought back. So happy to see him back. He is not under the exempt status now. I think he's being treated as just a normal, quote unquote, player. Pittsburgh has somebody else already signed with that international exemption. So he's healthy. Glad he's back.
Look, he's a guy that turned a few heads, caught our eye a couple of times during the preseason there, and it does make you wonder. Look, I'm glad he's back, but B, I kind of wonder, you hate to see him miss all that time, at the start of the year because of kind of the way he was growing, the way he was showing up on tape. But the good thing is that he's healthy again. He's back. We'll have to see if he's able to stick around on the practice squad due to whatever needs they might have the rest of the season. But they had a little something there with him, so it is good to have him back on the practice squad. And the best thing about it all is he is back healthy again.
He had 3-4 sacks in the preseason. They weren't the highest quality sacks. Some of them were more of the cleanup variety, but still impressive. I thought his run defense was actually really good. I thought the pass rush was lacking, but there is certainly, I think, something there. We'll see if he can stick around, as you said. All right, Dave, let's get to Mike Tomlin on Tuesday. We'll start with the health of the team, the injury situation, and some extra time to rest up off that mini bye. Would say Pittsburgh is in a good place health-wise overall, especially after back-to-back AFC North games. Tomlin not ruling out Alex Highsmith for this weekend, and Highsmith himself is not ruling himself out whenever he spoke to reporters. Don't believe he practiced during the team's bonus day on Tuesday. Pittsburgh did not have to release an injury report yesterday. The first one will come today, so we'll keep a close eye on Highsmith's status. Tomlin, for I think the fourth week in a row, has mentioned Corey Trice Jr. as a possibility to return, and I feel like this is going to be the week for that to occur. And also mentioned Montrevious Adams, and those tackles been on IR with a knee injury, is somebody who has a chance to return and is working his way back. The team is not officially opened up its 21-day window. That could come today, but it's good to hear about Quan Adams as a backup nose tackle for this team.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if we get that news during the podcast this morning about the window being opened up for him. I'm with you on Corey Trice coming off of a long week, and he's practiced now for a couple of weeks with that window, 21-day window being open for him. So we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, with the game on Sunday, any move with him could come either, more than likely Saturday is if you're going to activate him to the 53-man roster. That would likely happen on Saturday, but it could obviously happen at any time moving forward. It feels like it might be a little early to rush Montrevious Adams back, but if they get the window open on him, say today or tomorrow or the rest of the week, obviously he would be in line to maybe make it back by the game against the Browns or something along those lines there. And Alex Highsmith will be the one that we all have circled to watch on the Wednesday injury report to see the level of participation. The fact that the video that was out there yesterday coming out of practice and him not being shown in any of those groups was, makes you kind of feel maybe this is the week to kind of reacclimate him after a couple of weeks lost. So if push comes to shove right now, I would predict that Alex Highsmith won't be ready by Sunday, but that I've been wrong with those predictions before in the past, but we'll learn a little bit more of that later this afternoon. Hopefully, at the minimum, he can go on a limited basis and then maybe full on Thursday and Friday and maybe surprise us and be back for the game against the Bengals. But he will definitely be the guy to watch on the injury report on Wednesday.
How many games has Pittsburgh had their top three outside linebackers of Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig all healthy together for the entirety of the game? Is it two? Is it the first 2 weeks?
When did he injure the groin initially? Was that the
week 3
Chargers game?
Mid-Chargers game, right. And Herbig went down midway through week 5 against Dallas.
Yeah. So it's been only a few of them that they've been able to have all of them back on the field again. I guess where you're kind of going with that is sacks are down this year, right? In totality, and Mike Tomlin was asked about that during his Tuesday press conference. And what do you think about the answer that Mike Tomlin gave when it came to sacks being down?
Yeah, he cited a variety of things. Teams protecting more because they know how potent Pittsburgh's pass rush can be, the injuries, obviously, and some of the extra attention that turns to TJ Watt. I get some of that, but Pittsburgh has still been generally pretty stocked at outside linebacker. They've had Herbig or Highsmith in the lineup for most of the games this year. I know there was a stretch where they didn't, and it was Moon and who was it, Ogundeji and those guys, and I can understand the sack and pressure decrease then, but I would say to the whole Tomlin comment about, well, teams know how strong our rush is. Pittsburgh once went 5 straight years with 50 plus sacks, and teams were well aware of how potent Pittsburgh's rush was at that point. So I don't know if that really passes the stiff test. I think partially because Pittsburgh is blitzing less this year, and so that just naturally decreases pressure rates and sack rates that kind of go hand in hand when you're sending only 4 and rushing 7 and trusting those guys to get home. So it's a combination of factors. I think either way you want to spin it, though, you can't have 25 sacks through 11 games for a Pittsburgh Steelers defense. That just does not happen. And so you want to see that increase. Look at the things like pressure rates as well. They're 18th in pressure rate across the league this year. So I get what Tomlin is saying, but the bottom line is the bottom line, and 25 sacks in 11 games is not going to cut it.
Yeah, and they've had all those guys in the middle as well, too, right? Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, Cameron Hayward, guys that, and like you said, there's only been very small stretches that they didn't have at least one of Herbig or Highsmith on the outside there. So, yeah, it's disappointing, and it's no surprise how teams play these guys because they've been going. TJ Watt's been facing the same kind of game plan against him for obviously several years now. So it's time for those sacks, or at least the pressure rates, to increase a little bit moving forward. This would be a great Sunday to rattle off a good 5 or 6 sacks and some heavy pressure rates going up against a guy like Joe Burrow. Interesting matchup ahead of this to obviously watch is, and you mentioned this the other day, I think, Watt against Aramis Mims, the rookie over there for the Bengals, and whoever plays on the right side will obviously go against a more established left tackle over there for the Bengals. But yeah, it's disappointing that we're not looking at a potential 50 sack season here for this team.
Yeah, and currently not even on pace for 40 sacks, on pace for 38, which would be their fewest since 2016. And on a per game basis, since that year was the 16-game season, to be their lowest since 2014. And so that would be the worst mark in a decade, which is a very, un-Pittsburgh-like stat. If you saw that stat in August in a crystal ball, you would say, well, TJ Watt got hurt. But Watt has been the lone healthy outside linebacker, and even his production is down by his lofty standards. One just loose thread to tie on the injury situation. Mike Tomlin did not mention Landon Roberts, who left that Browns game, never found out definitively what the injury was there, so I assume he's okay. And Keanu Benton did not finish that game. No mention from Tomlin on Tuesday of an injury, so I assume he's okay. But that was curious to see Benton not be out there for that final drive that Cleveland won the game on.
All right. Tying some other things into the sacks and all, and talking about TJ Watt, more questions about TJ Watt potentially moving more, you're playing a little bit more on the other side. He was asked specifically about, having saw him line up about 4 times against the Giants, and since then he really hasn't done that. Mike Tomlin says probably a little bit of both. We're talking about personnel and health and game planning. He says, I think we were working with a deficit at the Giants game in terms of our edge people. As we get everybody back, we're more inclined to play from their home spots. So it doesn't sound like we should expect TJ Watt to move around much, if any, moving forward, especially when Alex Highsmith gets back. He was asked specifically, a follow-up, is moving him around more something you guys want to do, or do you want guys to have more home spots with your defense? He says, well, it's week to week, to be honest with you. Some of these discussions are matchup based about the people we face, so they're relative to particular weeks. And then, I think also, who was it? Kabali wrote up something that he doesn't really think TJ Watt's too concerned about moving over to the other side. He likes playing more on his more natural side, the left side there. So wrapping all that up in a ball, I wouldn't, I would not expect to see TJ Watt, playing all on that right side, much of any moving forward, especially once they get Highsmith back from the injury. Could they potentially twist him inside more? This, that, and the other. I mean, I think Ogunjobi's a pretty crafty guy sometimes when it comes to hooking some of those guys, those guards or whatnot inside. But even so, I think I'd much rather take my chance on Watt coming off the edge than I would twisting him inside 5, 6, 7 times a game.
Yeah, I'm still confident that Watt can produce on his normal side, the left side. It's a lot of attention for a team that still has hardly ever moved Watt over. He played, 4 or 5 snaps there against the Giants. I think he had a couple early in the season against Indy, and that's been about it. So, despite the Steelers talking about it's week to week, it's game plan based, it's still something they rarely do. And if they get healthy and get Highsmith back, then it's going to be something that probably happens, very, very infrequently, which I'm okay with. I've been adamant that I don't think that's the key to unlocking TJ Watt. I'm okay with him staying on his side. Can you do some different things to help scheme him up? Sure. Can you blitz a little bit more? Can you be a little more creative? Can you give a couple different looks? Absolutely. But he's still TJ Watt, and I'm going to assume that's going to win out in the long run more so than these little snapshots in time, despite him having, I think, a poor game against the Cleveland Browns, even in those one-on-one matchups, because he was not chipped as much as I thought he would be going back to that all-22. He had a lot of one-on-one chances with Jack Conklin. He just simply lost those. So, it's more on him, but I'm confident he'll bounce back. And by the way, we're becoming the Daniel Jones breaking news podcast as well. He's apparently signing with the Minnesota Vikings, according to Fox Sports' Jordan Schultz. And so had some rumors about him going to Baltimore as a backup to Lamar, but he is going to go to Minnesota instead.
All right. Interesting news there.
All right. What else for Mike Tomlin? Do you want to get into the old George Pickens situation? A lot of commentary from around the internet and from Tomlin. Or actually, I would say not much commentary from Tomlin, but from Big Ben. And we've talked about it quite a bit as well. Tomlin asked about George Pickens on the Hail Mary, what happened on that play. He really kind of cited towards the Browns having more to do with Pickens not being around the football on that Hail Mary, which I think he's 100% correct about. Was asked about Pickens' actions after the play, the little scuffle that ensued, and then Pickens' post-game comments of saying the Browns are not a good team. Tomlin said he did not see and had not seen the tape of the scuffle after, which I do not believe at all, but he said he heard about it and did not have any additional commentary, nor did he have commentary on Pickens' commentary of the Browns not being a good team. He says he does not tell players what to think or say. They are not robots, and he will not add color to those words that Pickens had to offer about Cleveland.
All right, let's start with the actual what happened on the play itself. I went back again and looked at the all-22 and the TV shots of it and all like that. And I know there's been a couple of Browns players that come out and called him soft. And I think the one of the safeties said Pickens had no intention of really being intending to factor into that Hail Mary play. That he was essentially more apt to tussle with Greg Newsom down the field and all like that. If you go back and you look and slow it down, here's something else that I would not be surprised with. We got Hard Knocks coming up a week from yesterday and all like that. Somebody somewhere's got more close-up footage of this stuff of that tussle, I bet, between Pickens and Newsom really starting, I guess, upon entering the end zone. Don't be surprised if we get better angles of that. But just on the all 22, kind of press box view of it and all other angles, you can see Pickens looking up for the ball. You can actually see the bottom of his chin, the chin strap, trying to find the football up in the air. So I do not buy the fact that Pickens was not at least trying to get himself involved in the play. Newsom, on the other hand, had different intentions there. He was just trying to carry him out of the play specifically on this. And then once Pickens got to the back of the in line of the end zone there is when the extracurricular activity, if you will, begins there. And Tomlin, in so many words, said that their actions, meaning the Browns players, had a say in what happened with him being the quote unquote point man, the jump ball man in that situation there. So I don't think it was lack of effort or Pickens going down there and says, the hell with this. I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna tussle with Greg Newsome here. I think Newsome played a part in trying to escort him and push him out of the back of the end zone. I think you can, once again, I think you can see shots of Pickens looking up, trying to find the football as he was being escorted out of the back of the end zone there. And then once he was about at that back end line there, and the ball had, he was out of the picture there. That's when him and Newsome, had their scuffle towards the side of the stands there. So I don't, I don't think I'm not buying the part that Pickens went down there with no intentions of trying to get involved with that. I just think the Browns, and look, could you call pass interference on that?
It was, but they never called it on Hail Mary.
Right. So in defense of Pickens, I'm not buying the Browns side of this argument. Now, there was other commentary about we know how to get inside of his head and yada yada. I mean, he's an emotional player for sure. So I buy some into, look, we talked about the trip, and I think that was just absolutely foolish on Pickens' part, trying to trip Delpit, during that, look, the last guy got called on that, though. Delpit got the penalty, right? On that. But I do think it was foolish for him to kind of trip him and all like that. Sure. But I mean, back to the original point here in the Hail Mary play, I just think that he got carried out of the end zone, and then he took his frustrations out on Newsome once they went out of the back of the end zone there. So good on them. They kept George Pickens out of the play, but that part of it I'm willing to defend Pickens on.
Me too. I think it's pretty clear what happened. I have no issues with that. Pickens was obviously trying to make a play, and Newsome literally just shoved him out of the end zone. That's really all there is to it. And tempers flared after, and I know why Pickens would be mad. And I think maybe Pickens took off Newsome's helmet. It's hard to tell exactly what happened back there, but that's all.
We'll get better shots of that. I'm sure. Almost guarantee you, but.
So we get to talk about this next week. Hooray. I love talking about this story for 3 weeks in a row. Now, the post-game comment, dumb, obviously. The only thing I really care about is the trip, which was really, as you said, childish and immature and just dumb to do. And luckily, he didn't get penalized for that. That's an on-field action where if the ref happens to see it. You're right, the retaliator usually is the guy that gets penalized and flagged for it, but you want to be careful there. We're in goal to go territory. We're trying to come back in that game. You could call for a trip there, get a 15-yard penalty. That is a game changer for sure. So that is the issue to me. Everything else is pretty much just noise.
Yeah. What do you think about, look, I think his comments, I didn't like his comments post game.
Yeah, they're dumb.
But
I mean, who cares? The game's over. He's emotional, obviously, and we all move on.
Right. Do you think Mike Tomlin has any conversation with him, though? Mike Tomlin says, I don't tell these guys what to say. I don't want them to be robots. If you want more color commentary, go ask George about that and all. Do you think he just kind of pulls them off to the side and says, hey, man, come on, you just provide more bulletin board material moving forward, or is that overblown?
I assume these conversations are continual. I think somebody proactive and sort of a fatherly figure like Tomlin is always touching base and reminding, even when nothing's happening at all, and just talking about situations in life and those types of things. And obviously, this is not the first time that there's been something going on with George Pickens. And so I think Tomlin's probably had an idea of how to coach him up and how to teach him and all that kind of stuff along the way. So was there something extra said this past week? I don't know. There was a long layoff and everyone kind of got out of the facility and went their separate ways for a couple of days to enjoy the weekend. So I just imagine those things are on an ongoing basis between Pickens and Tomlin and how to mature and grow.
Yeah. The bad thing is about after losses, sometimes it seems Pickens becomes the storyline you know,
Mhm.
for one reason or the other. And after wins, he's fine, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about that before. It only comes up ever only after losses, and he's not helping the cause by giving some meat on the bone to be talked about. But again, I think this stuff is more bark than bite.
All right. We'll make interesting conversations with him being up for a contract after this year, but we got plenty of time to talk about that.
What else from Mike Tomlin? He defended the third down pass attempt to George Pickens, that 3rd and 4 by Justin Fields, where Pittsburgh converts. They have a great chance to win that game. And that, of course, led to the 15-yard shank punt by Corliss Waitman, a big game changer there. But I understand Tomlin's commentary. The Browns were packing the box. Literally, there was no deep safety on that play. It was complete man coverage. They were expecting Justin Fields' run of some sort. And so I get going up top one-on-one to George Pickens, as also Tomlin said, going against not Denzel Ward, and so that was a matchup that Pittsburgh liked.
Uh, were you disappointed that there was not any more of an option up other than the deep ball?
I don't know if I was disappointed in that. I just think the way the Browns were dictating coverage was a chance to throw it up. Could you had a slant and try to beat one-on-one coverage? I get that, but I also understand, Pittsburgh is really comfortable throwing those jump balls to Pickens, and more times than not, he makes the play. So I get what Tomlin was doing there. I get the scheme of the play.
If it, once again, would you much rather have Russell Wilson in there? But you would have probably got a different look anyway,
Yeah.
because anytime Justin Fields was in the game, they were making sure to pack the box, right?
Right. You would have not gotten that type of coverage had Wilson been in the game on that 3rd and 4. I still think there should have been a PI on Pickens on that play. I think that one rose to the level of throwing a flag, but the refs let things play out.
And if you're going to mix things up on occasion and just not be a zone read or rollout type situation when Fields is in the game, you have to at least earn some respect at some point that, look, this guy's willing to throw the football down the field, right?
Sure. It can't just be here's our run package, and that's the whole balance of you put Fields in for his legs and athleticism, but it can't be 100% run situation where defenses can play those really extreme looks where they're bringing the whole 11 up on the line essentially, and no deep man without any consequence to that. So you have to throw the ball, and Pittsburgh did twice with Fields. The one was incomplete and then got called for roughing the passer on that kind of little half roll to the right, and then the actual one that stood on that 3rd and 4. So Pittsburgh will have to show, as they are trying to do, that they can also throw out of this package and look as well.
All right, let's roll in a couple of comments Ben Roethlisberger made about this on his podcast, saying that I would find ways to at least put Justin Fields on the field, even if it's having both quarterbacks on the field and potentially lining up Justin Fields even up at wide receiver, just to give opposing teams something on film, take an extra 15 minutes or whatever time out of their practices to have to dedicate to things such as that, so that they don't spend a majority of the time on things that they should be and know that they will see. What did you think? Do you have any extra commentary on that?
Not much. I mean, it's fine. I'm not against the idea. To be clear, he's not suggesting that Fields should switch to receiver or even
Right.
really suggesting much of a slash role. That's some of the commentary that's come up, always Cordell 2.0. Ben even said, like, you don't even have to do anything special with Fields on that play. You could just line him up wide and then hand the ball off to Najee Harris, but you're just giving the illusion of, are they going to do something with Fields on that play? Heck, I know Ben kind of downplayed the idea, and I'm not really advocating for it strongly, but you could put Russell Wilson out there. And what I kind of like about that idea is you force the defense to have to cover that with somebody, a corner, a safety, a linebacker. You're removing somebody to just have to stand there and be in the area of Russell Wilson, which I think creates one less man in the box to defend if you're going to put Justin Fields in a quarterback and run the ball that way. So there's even, I think, a value in putting Russ out there, even though, of course, you would never throw the football to him or have any sort of involvement with him. You're just removing a player from the box because they got to put somebody out there to defend that. So, yeah, it's an option. But I think at this point, Pittsburgh's having some issues with the fluidity of their Fields package. And so let's get kind of the basics down right of let's get in and out of the huddle on time. let's have some of these core plays start working before we start adding layers to, hey, let's start moving fields around. Let's kind of figure out when to use fields, how to use fields, how to operate in those packages before we start adding more and more layers on top of it.
What about putting both of them in the backfield a snap or two?
Well, you're going all like A11, like the true two quarterback system there. I don't know. I mean, we
just
can
to give them
draw the whiteboard
something
up.
to think about, and then
Sure.
maybe you could design something off of that.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
I'm not talking about doing it 5 times a game,
I know.
but but like Ben said, give somebody something to think about.
Yeah, I think there's a million things you can do to kind of give those looks, but I would just take it back to the central point of let's building block this thing and let's kind of get the basics down of this package right, because I don't think Pittsburgh is there right now before we start trying to get ultra creative with it. Let's crawl before we walk is kind of where my mindset is with the Fields package.
All right. What else from Mike Tomlin? Fields or anything related along those lines? Was there anything there?
Well, less so about Fields, but I thought a really interesting comment from Tomlin, and one we don't hear him make too often in terms of talking about the coaching staff and putting some blame there. He was talking about, I think, some of the short yardage situations and getting play calls in quickly and operating cleanly and all those kinds of things. He says, quote, "We need to get better. There were some game circumstances we as a coaching staff need to adapt and adjust to replay assist. Sometimes you make decisions at speed and a spot of the ball might be different or a circumstance might be different based on replay assist. I think that's happened 2 or 3 times in the last 2 or 3 weeks. That's been a component of performance for us." I was a little unclear of exactly what he's referring to. Is it where they're not sure that was it a first down? Is it 4th and short? Is it 4th and 1? Is it 4th and 2? Is that exactly what Tomlin is referring to when he talks about adjusting to replay assist?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to parse that out, know exactly what he meant overall. Has any of this played into kind of the rushed situations like you've talked about?
I have to assume that's a general component of it. You talk about the Baltimore game, the team being late to break the huddle on one of those 4th down plays, the first failed 4th down against Cleveland. Their offensive linemen are coming off the field. They're breaking the huddle late. The play call, I think, came in a reasonable amount of time. It has to because the headsets get turned off with 15 seconds left. But I have to assume that's about what Tomlin's referring to. So bottom line is he's talking that there's got to be quicker communication, cleaner communication about what the circumstance is. And that's been an issue. So Tomlin said that they used a mini bye to kind of come together as a coaching staff and review those things and work on those things. And they got to get corrected again. We're in Thanksgiving. We're in late November. These things might be issues early in a season, preseason type stuff. You have some new coaching staff pieces, new OC, new quarterbacks coach, new receivers coach, etc. So you might have some of those growing pains early, but we are in the home stretch here, and those things should be long problems that have been already solved.
And you don't have a lot of moving different parts, especially the last couple of weeks, right? I mean, yeah, you do have Mike Williams is new to the team, but he's only playing 18 to 20 something snaps a game anyway there. So yeah, and it's something that you've highlighted a couple of times in a couple of these key situations is how rushed they've seemed, especially I think a few of those have been short yardage, haven't they?
Yeah, like I said, the 2 4th down calls, or
Right.
2 of the 4th down calls, one against Baltimore, one against Cleveland, where they're breaking the huddle with 10 seconds left. And so it's rushed. And I think, and I hadn't gone back and really checked it, but I think even the Boswell field goal, I know Ben referenced this on the podcast, was a little bit rushed as well. So was there some communication? Okay, what is the down and distance? How is this a 58-yarder? Is this a 57-yarder? Trying to figure out what the range is, because I imagine that was about the cusp of Boswell's range, given the elements. And so I wonder if there was some confusion, how long of a field goal is this for Boswell to determine, are we going to kick or are we going to punt? And that, I think, delayed the decision, which rushed the kick, which was ultimately, no good.
All right. One overarching kind of direction Mike Tomlin went in this thing. In fact, he opened up with it, talking about using Tuesday as a bonus day and concentrating on things such as red zone offense and defense, and trying to shore up some self-scouting things that they found on that. He was obviously asked more about similar to South self-scouting on short yardage situations. Did that study reveal any common thread into some of the red zone struggles that have happened lately? He says, no doubt on both sides of the ball. That's why we're excited about getting back to work today, and the application component. Identification is just one component. Application is probably more significant in terms of what we are going to try to do to rectify it, both in schematics and with manpower. Yeah. No surprise there. Short yardage and red zone, two key areas that this team should have taken a hard look at during this mini bye week, and certainly areas where they need to get better starting on Sunday against the Bengals. This team is where they rank as far as red zone goes right now, Alex?
30th.
30th. Let me double check. Make sure you are correct there. I think you are. See rankings. Red zone. You are correct, sir. 44.74%, 30th in the NFL. Goal to go, they are 31st in the league. As far as that goes, fourth down percentage, they are tied for 21st. They are 50-50 in fourth down percentages there. And third down, they're right around the middle of the pack at 38.85%. What are they on the defensive side of football here? Red zone, they are not as bad. They're ranked 11th overall, tied for 11th at 51.52%. Goal to go, they're 18th in the league. Third down, they are one of the better third down teams in the NFL at 33.0%, and kind of rolling that back into an exclamation point from the Browns game is, man, they were fantastic on third down. It's just that, kind of a hidden stat, if you will, was the Browns going 4 for 4 on the fourth down situations that they had in that game. So things that we've been talking about here for several weeks, short yardage in red zone. If this team is going to win this game on Sunday against the Bengals, and be a team that needs to be contended with and maybe make a playoff run in here, they've got to get better in the red zone and short yardage. End of story.
Situational football, it will dictate a lot, especially when you're playing some of the best, and Pittsburgh has a lot of those teams on their schedule the rest of the way: the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and whoever they face in the postseason. So that will determine a lot. Now, in terms of what the issues are, I think Tomlin just said we got to be better, which thank you for that, Mike. Wasn't sure. I talked about red zone stuff specifically, conventionally running the ball better. I think they have to do a better job down low there, and beating zone coverage, I think, are the two main culprits of why this red zone offense has been so poor.
All right. What else from Mike Tomlin?
I think that was essentially it. Hard Knocks, I should mention Hard Knocks, which you talked about. That's going to air a week from yesterday, 6 days from now. Is that when the first episode is going up?
Yep, next Tuesday night.
It is something to conquer, says Mike Tomlin. His focus, while he's certainly no fan of the cameras being there, there is some misery and company to come together, and his goal is to handle it better than the other three AFC North teams. And so that was my first thought of how I thought Pittsburgh would react to being on Hard Knocks when that got announced earlier this year, of at least the other teams in the division have to deal with it too. And so we all share in that problem. And so Tomlin wants to handle it better than the other three teams. How do you judge that? It'll be, I guess, just judge off a performance and who wins and who loses. It's hard to really know anything beyond that. But Tomlin, I'm sure, not thrilled, but nothing you can do about it, and trying to make the most and the best out of the situation.
Yeah, at least the other three teams in the division are going through it as well. So I'm interested to see all this play out. We'll be watching it, and obviously the week-to-week outcomes of these games will be interesting to see the narratives that are presented alongside of that. He was asked about Minka Fitzpatrick again, and really the lack of splash plays, and how People wanted confirmation bias, reporters, I think, more than anything. In other words, Mike Tomlin, please tell the people why Minka's actually doing a good job overall, and explain away the lack of interceptions. And really, we got kind of a repackaged answer from Mike Tomlin that we've gotten a couple of times this year. Talking about, he hasn't. People don't throw the ball in that space, but I think that's what happens when you have quality players. People show their respect for quality players, and then he goes back to reference, and this isn't the first time. It might be the third time, I think, maybe even the fourth time he's talked about Jesse Bates and the Falcons that first game of the year, and knew not to throw at Jesse Bates in that game, and how other people since then have tried to, and Jesse Bates has won them a game. He says that's just football in the NFL. You better be cognizant of the personnel and unique skill sets, and you show respect to those talents by just being thoughtful and how you attack them. So Mike Tomlin remains unworried about the lack of splash plays from Minka Fitzpatrick. He thinks he's doing a great job of protecting the middle of the field and causing teams to go other directions. Other than that, so that's where he remains planted with that flag in the ground.
Right, as you said, it's a response he and Terrell Austin have given several times before this season, and I get a lot of that. I think Minka's still having a good year. But there is a point where you sit there and say, okay, at what point is he going to get that next interception? Because we're coming up on almost 2 full calendar years. Now, he was hurt for a lot of last year, and you gave him a lot of grace. He was in the box quite a bit, but you were just thinking he could, make those splash plays. I mean, quarterbacks knew about him in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, and he still was able to make those plays. So what has changed? There has been even some moments in coverage against tight ends where he's, given up some plays. They're tough plays to make, and I get that, but against Mark Andrews and 1 third down catch to Njoku, I think it was, and that third down conversion to Judy late in that Browns game where he was in the vicinity, maybe some miscommunication between Porter trying to pass it off to Fitzpatrick. It's hard to say. So at some point, you want to break that drought and create that splash because his defense is all about making big plays. And Minka's supposed to be one of the biggest playmakers.
This will be, once again, I hate to punctuate the importance of this game on Sunday against the Bengals, but it'd be a great game for kind of mimic the last time. Was it the last time or the second to last time that they faced Burrow and the Bengals, where Watt just went off in that game, had the interception? Did Minka have an interception in that same game? Seems like.
Well, there was we didn't see Burrow last year in the 2022 season opener. Minka had the blocked extra point that kept the game tied to send it to overtime.
It was the second meeting then that those two had good games against, wasn't it?
Well, Minka, did he have the pick six in that opener on the first play of the game or the second snap of the game? One of those two. Was that Minka? That was Minka with the pick six, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. That would have been what, 2022?
22. This is the opener of the game, crazy game, Boswell game winner as his time expired in OT. Watt went off in both of those games. He had picks and pass breakups and swats and all of that. So Watt was pretty insane in both games. I think it was the first game where Minka had the pick six to open up the scoring in that one.
All right. It'd be a good week for both those guys to show up on key areas of the stat sheet for sure.
Yeah, but Burrow having a great year, taking tremendous care of the football. Only 4 interceptions this year, the best touchdown to interception ratio of his career. We'll talk about that more on Friday's show. All right, Dave, anything else from Mike Tomlin?
What do you think about the potential of Justin Fields packages? What was the kind of question specifically about rhythm of the offense or anything like that when he's in the game?
Yeah, I just asked about, is there potential for it disrupting the rhythm of Russell Wilson and the quote-unquote starting offense? And Tomlin said there is potential for that, but their aim is to make it more disruptive to defenses than it is to their own offense. So again, one of those many layers to consider that you have to think about and talk about more than just, okay, play Fields, which was the refrain going into this Browns game. Oh, just play him in the red zone and everything will be solved. But there is a lot more to it than just put number 2 in the game. So is there potential for disruption? Sure. I'm a little less concerned about it, frankly. And I'm with Tomlin, where I think it can force defenses to prepare and use up some valuable practice time and calories to deal with that potential that they may not see at all or only see a couple plays a game. And anytime you can make a defense handle and deal with some of the sidebar type stuff is a win for the offense.
Look, at least with Russell Wilson being sidelined early in the year, it got the offense used to having Justin Fields out there. So, I could understand potential of being more concerned about more disruption had Russell Wilson started the season and they just did not get any in-game type situation with Justin Fields. But Justin Fields has taken a lot of snaps so far this season. So you wouldn't think, especially at this point of the season, and then obviously the amount of practice that they've had with both those guys and all like that it shouldn't be a big concern.
Agreed. That's a great point where they've run these plays, the Fields run plays, the quarterback powers, the zone reads. They did that for this first 6 weeks of the season. So none of this is really new. And so it's going to lessen whatever disruption there may have been potential for it to cause.
All right, the defense rest as far as where I think we beat up this Tomlin stuff pretty good for a 30-minute press conference. Nothing new on Mike Williams. He's done a nice job fitting in, learning our football and how we go about our business and all. And it's reasonable to expect that continue and grow the longer he's here as far as his role. So, it would be nice to see him get a few more, not only just maybe a few more snaps, but a few more targets his way to he is impacting some game, at least a few snaps, not games, but snaps with how he's having to be at least accounted for when he's out there. And then hopefully that kind of stuff will loosen up Pat Freiermuth and Pickens potentially a little bit more moving forward here. But I'm snowballing all this together into kind of your thoughts on Pat Freiermuth, a guy that we've talked about recently. His production probably not exactly where we thought it would be as kind of the number 2 option in the passing game at this point of the season, but it's not out of lack of trying to have him implemented in the passing game, right?
Sure. Have a video up this morning because I've gotten a lot of questions about it, as I know you have as well, Dave. What's going on with Pat Freiermuth? Why is he not catching the ball more? Why are his numbers down? And I still think he's been a pretty core part of the pass game scheme. I still see Arthur Smith scheming things up for him, especially in those critical, what I call gotta have it situations, third down and red zone and third down in the red zone type moments where they're scheming him up the football. They're isolating him backside and 3-by-1. They're getting the ball in red zone on picks and rubs. And so I'm still seeing the intent. Now, the ball doesn't always go there. The quarterback might miss it. The defense might take it away. There might be a penalty, all those things I walk through. And as you said, not that it was really designed for him, but there was that one boot that Wilson had against Cleveland where Freiermuth is all alone. And that's at least a 40, 50-yard play. If Russell sees it, he just didn't, he came off the read a little too early and threw it underneath to Darnell Washington. So talk about what one play can.
There's been some pushback on that. People saying, well, you're supposed to read that top down, and his initial look when he comes out is to Freiermuth, and then he comes down underneath, looking at, I think Pickens was Pickens coming across underneath there, and then he's continuing to roll out. Freiermuth gets the little bit of there's pushback in that, but I think an interesting thing that you pointed out in that video there is the coaching staff's all pointing at Pat Freiermuth, right? So
yeah, everyone
how
saw
would
he was
you
open.
respond to the pushback of you read that top down?
Well, it's not a high-low read. It depends on the system and the scheme. Some coaches teach to read high to low. Pittsburgh is low to high. The flat is the first option. It's always the first option. And they run that concept, that boot concept with the flat, the over out in the corner, like I said on Monday, like I said in the video, a million times. And so it's always a low to high read. You read the flat first. If it's there, you hit it, you get the 6 yards and move on. If not, you're working then downfield to the over out. And again, they don't often throw that corner out. I'm not even sure if it's happened once this year, maybe one to Pickens, I think. But it is not a high-low read. It is a low-high read in Pittsburgh. And so he went Washington to Pickens. I'm not even sure if he really even made it to Freiermuth, but then kind of came back down to Washington underneath. But to respond to that, if the accusation is you read it high, even if you read it high-low, he was not open immediately. You had to wait for him to get open when the defense, for whatever reason, kind of lost him and bit down on the underneath stuff. And so even if that was a high-low read, it was not there initially. So if your initial read is Freiermuth, then it was never going to be open by the time Wilson came off of that. So yeah, I would just say that that's incorrect framing of what the progression is on that play.
Okay, I agree with you, and that's why I pointed it out earlier in the week, and we just hit on it, briefly coming out of that Browns game there. But the coaching staff sure is convinced that, and Freiermuth sure is convinced he should have got the ball there.
Yeah, I mean, again, you look back at the tape, and I'm sure Russ is kicking himself when he went back to the sideline, just missing it. But sometimes you miss open receivers, and yeah, anytime a guy's 20 yards wide open, the whole world is going to point to him. But that's just more of an instinctive thing than it is really a coaching progression thing. So yeah, that just, again, it sucks. But the point is, if that play is hit, that's, who knows how long that one goes. And that changes his whole stat line. Give him an extra 50, 60 yards for the season and then maybe a touchdown. And all of a sudden, his numbers look a whole lot better. But even that play aside, I'm still seeing stuff designed for him in those big time moments. And
the Ravens took one away. We talked about you having that video of him leaking out, and teams are defending him well.
Yeah. And sometimes the ball just doesn't go your way. There was a Hank concept on third down where I thought Freiermuth was open and Russ, didn't go that way and he went somewhere else with the football. So again, there's a variety of things. When you're playing in a run heavy offense, it's not throw the ball a ton in an Arthur Smith system where the volume for, receivers who are not the number one primary guy, which is still George Pickens, it's just not going to be there. It's pretty typical for other guys to not have super gaudy numbers overall, but I still think that the intent and the scheme and the desire to get Freiermuth the football is there, and hopefully that will align with his production in time.
Didn't he have a big game? Was it last year against the Bengals? 9 catches or something?
Mm-hmm. The post-Canada firing game for 120 yards or something like that. So we'll see if that happens again.
All right. How did we even get on that aspect of?
Not sure. How do we get to anything on this show? Let's talk about one bit of speculation that came up yesterday. Reportedly, Mack Brown at North Carolina will not return in 2025. I'm not sure if he's officially, I think he's still there coaching. I don't know if he's going to coach through the bowl game, but either way, North Carolina is going to be looking for a new head coach next year. And some speculation, maybe reporting about Arthur Smith, of course, went to North Carolina, played offensive line there. I think even was a grad assistant maybe there for a brief time. Some rumors about him. There's not really anything been ironclad in reporting, just some tea leaves. And I think one report from The Athletic saying that he has support in Chapel Hill for the job, but who knows exactly where that will go. But we talk about Zach Azzani on the Monday show about Central Michigan, which I think is pretty unlikely to occur. I think Arthur Smith, North Carolina, would have more legs, but we'll see. We don't know where that one's going to go.
Yeah, obviously, once Arthur Smith, in fact, was hired, we discussed and you broke down one of the coaching tape segments that I think he had done during COVID or something like that with the North Carolina coaching staff, and Mack Brown was co-hosting that and all. Obviously, Arthur Smith has the ties to there, so if you're building a list of guys that would potentially fit in that program, Arthur Smith would be on that list. But it does, once again, it most of this that came out yesterday just seems like, like we do with offensive coordinators, building a list of potential, connecting the dots kind of thing there. I mean, could Arthur Smith be a good college coach and probably stay at North Carolina for 20 years? Probably. But is that where his head's at? Nobody knows. Here's the thing. Today's Wednesday. I don't think coordinators are meeting with the media today. I think that's on tomorrow on Thanksgiving. I would expect Arthur Smith to be asked. I would be disappointed if he's not asked about it. But I don't think we're going to get any kind of, look, you're going to get the, I'm concentrated on my job, unless he just flat out, puts the fire out. I mean, I don't think we're going to learn anything new in the next 48 hours.
No, I don't either, but I'm sure he will be asked, and I'd be interested in his response. Yeah, would he go? It's all speculation. Again, Mack Brown is still at North Carolina, so this is not about interviews or official considerations or anything like that. This is just off the top. Some, as you said, doc connecting, which we like to do always with these kind of coaching staff openings that will, could occur after the season for Pittsburgh. And then, yeah, do you want to become a college coach and deal with NIL and recruiting and all that crap that comes along with it? There's been a real kind of pushback. A lot of college coaches are leaving those posts. Who was it? Jeff Hafley in Boston College left to become the DC in Green Bay because he just didn't want to deal with the head coaching process in college. Chip Kelly leaving to become the OC at Ohio State to not have to deal with head coach responsibilities and everything that comes along with that. So, being a college head coach it's probably even more of a grind than the NFL because it is all encompassing in this NIL, which I generally support, but it is a whole new world of competition. And so is there even an appetite for Smith to do it? I have no idea, but would be something for him to certainly have to consider.
Do you think Arthur Smith will ever become a head coach in the NFL again?
I'm not really sure. Potentially, he's still pretty young in his early 40s. It's hard to say. It just takes one team, obviously. I think Albert Breer yesterday said he thinks there'll be 7 to 10 total head coach openings for 2025. I think I'm already at 2 right now. If I had to guess, and I'm just going to guess, I'll say yes, but it's just a real guess.
I'll say no, but that's just a guess on top of it. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what kind of how a question is framed at Arthur Smith about all this reporting about North Carolina on Thursday.
All right, Dave, anything else that you just wanted to mention and kind of highlight? And you mentioned at the top of the show, but the importance of this game this weekend. This is must win for the Bengals because they're 4-7. They cannot have an 8th loss. Is this must win for the Steelers?
It is if you don't want things to come unglued a little bit, because look, if they, no matter how, if they lose this game, whether it be 17-16 or 37-36, if they lose 2 consecutive losses to AFC North teams, you look at the schedule remaining, everything that just goes along with it, the what have you done for me lately kind of aspect of it. It's a huge gut check for this team, I think, overall. And against a team that this game is more important to the Bengals than it is the Steelers, technically, because of the records and the standings and all. So I just don't think you can underscore the importance of this game for both teams, but more so for the Bengals. And it would answer a lot of critics for the Steelers to come out and stymie a good offense in the Bengals, get back on a winning track after having a long week to have to taste this from the Browns game and all like that. So it's more of a must win for the Bengals, but if I can only imagine what the talk will be if the Steelers lose this game on Sunday to the Bengals.
Yeah, I think calling it must win is a little too far from what we typically reserve that phrase for. But man, you do not want to drop this one. That is for sure. To go to 8-4, to go to 1-2 in the division, to have a chance for the Ravens to pass you up in the standings, and that cushion that you had created over or after beating them just last Sunday would evaporate in a 2-game span, would really be jarring and upsetting. So yeah, I wouldn't call it must win, but it is about as close to must win without actually getting there as it could possibly be.
All right, I compiled some adjusted net yards per passing attempt stats yesterday for the season for all NFL teams. When it comes to offensive number, a number that we've kind of been monitoring throughout the seasons, the Steelers sit at 6.5. Obviously you've got, half and half, I think, really at this point between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson had the one extremely bad game, the 3-point something number. Other than that, his game to game number has been good. Boy, if you could limit the sacks that he's getting, because sacks play into the adjusted net yards per passing attempts stat, he'd probably be a little bit closer to, or he would be closer to 7 as far as that aspect is. 6.5, not bad. I'll take it at this point based on the mix of quarterbacks that they've had at this point. The defensive number is 5.2. Not bad. Definitely not bad. Definitely top, I think top 10 or so in the league when it comes to that number. The differential number is well over 1, which you want to definitely be at this point of the year. 1.3. They're ranked 9th overall in adjusted net yards per passing attempt differential. When's the last time that we've been able to say this about a Pittsburgh Steelers team coming out of week 12 entering week 13 of the season? It's a good indicator, at least historically at this point, that this team should be in the playoffs. But one thing that jumped out when doing these rankings is, as bad as the Bengals are record-wise, they are 11th overall, just 2 spots behind the Steelers in differential in this stat. They've been very good on offense with a 7.5 number. However, they've been just as lousy on defense with a 6.7 number. They lost a cornerback recently to injury as well. Their differential is over, it's in a positive number at 0.8. The team, I'm going to go out on a limb here, the team that has the better adjusted net yards per game differential in this game on Sunday between the Steelers or the Bengals is going to win this ball game here. This is a good offense that the Steelers will face a not so good defense. You roll back to last season, last season and the first series was the last time. You had an interesting stat on this as well too, didn't we? Talk about this the other day about opening drive touchdowns and that last meeting between the Bengals was the last time this team scored an opening drive touchdown, and Arthur Smith is entering Matt Canada territory, right?
Yeah, if he goes 2 more games, and so the Bengals and the Browns games without Pittsburgh having an opening drive touchdown, I think that'd be obviously 13 games without one, which would tie Canada for the longest streak that he had of consecutive opening possessions without a touchdown. That was a 13-game stretch he had that I think spanned the 2022 and 2023 season. So as a team, Pittsburgh's going on into, I think, game 13, in which they have not been able to put the ball in the end zone on an opening drive. Not that that's a say-all, end-all, but we talk about those quicker starts. We'd like to get on top of a team. They have moved the ball. They have 6 field goals on opening possessions, so there has been some more productivity. There's fewer 3-and-outs, and so that is a positive, but you want to put some touchdowns on the board early, be a better first quarter team, not have to win everything in the second half. And so one stat you'd love to change this weekend.
And here's the thing too, if you can't get those opening drive touchdowns, man, at least push it in the second or third drive in the first quarter. This team still has only 2 first quarter offensive touchdowns, right?
Is that it? I hadn't counted. I know they're being
Darnell
outscored
Washington
in the first quarter.
was one of them. Who was the other one earlier in the season?
I top of my head, I could not.
Was it the Broncos game? Oh, that was the Washington one. I think they only have 2 in total. I'm scrolling through real quick.
I know in the first quarter they're being outscored 51-35 compared to the fourth quarter where they're outscoring the opposition 91-65. So you see the big turnaround. They're a much better second half team, which they have been generally for years now. But yeah, only 2 first quarter touchdowns. Is that the fewest in football? That might be, if I had to guess, certainly not at the top.
Yeah. So, if you could start jumping on these teams a little bit quicker than they have been. When was the second one? I know. Was it
I believe you.
First, I know it's only 2.
Hold on.
I just looked at
it was the George Pickens touchdown against Washington.
That's right.
The crazy catch that he had was a first quarter touchdown.
Right. So we just got, adding on to the short yardage and red zone thing, aspects of this offense, man, just need to start putting up touchdowns, especially in the first quarter of games.
Is that the fewest in football this year, do you think? First quarter touchdown drives? I'm going to try to look it up here quickly if I can put everything together. If you had to guess, do you think any team is worse? There are some other...
I would imagine they're probably like the Giants or, I don't know, the Bears are down there. Potentially
somebody's worse.
Jacksonville, the Panthers. One of those lower teams, I would imagine, would have fewer. Any way for you to look that up kind of quickly?
I just pulled it up right now for you at your service. Looks like Pittsburgh is tied for last. There's a bunch of teams with only 2: Chicago, the Giants, the Steelers, the Eagles, the Rams, and the Cowboys. So overall, not the greatest company to keep, but Pittsburgh tied for last with a couple other teams.
All right, it'd be nice to check off a couple of boxes this week of first quarter touchdowns and opening drive touchdowns all in one play,
And just for comparison's sake, the best teams at scoring first quarter touchdowns, and this may not be considering defensive or special teams touchdowns, not able to sort that quickly on the fly, but the Texans, Vikings, and Cardinals all have 9. Pittsburgh again tied for last with 2.
One other thing real quick that jumps out, and we've hit on this a little bit throughout the season here. The Kansas City Chiefs have a negative adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat through entering in week 13 here at negative 0.4. Their offensive, as good as Patrick Mahomes is, their team adjusted net yards per passing attempt number is just 5.8, which is obviously lower than the Steelers. Defensively, it's a 6.2, which is obviously higher than the Steelers. And somebody in that tweet said, man, it's weird to look up and see the Chiefs ranked so low. And this is another aspect that we kind of hit on throughout the season here when it comes to the Chiefs. They're so damn good on third down, man.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think that plays into this thing to a heavier degree. And plus also, how many times has Patrick Mahomes been sacked this year? Do we have that? Can we get that?
I don't.
Ask our producer to
let's see. Patrick Mahomes has been sacked 27 times this year.
That's kind of high.
It's pretty high. It's his highest sack rate of his career.
All right. So yeah, I just don't think that you can't look at the third down percentage. They lead the NFL in third down percentages to think that that's helping offset this.
Yeah, basically 53% on third down, which is absurd. Only one other team above 47%, the Buccaneers at 50.4%. So winning situational football. How good is the red zone offense for the Chiefs? Maybe not great because their scoring offense isn't prolific, but where are they at? Just where are they at situationally overall, I wonder. They are 16th in red zone offense. So, yeah, not great there, but the number one third down offense will carry you a long way.
All right. Okay. Hit on the stat I wanted to hit on. What else did we say that we wanted to hit on today?
I think that's it, other than we'll make our Turkey Day picks here since we got the slate of games tomorrow, and then we'll get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Let me refresh. We got some one good game and 2 not so appetizing games here. We'll start off with the Bears at the Lions. The Lions 9.5 point home favorites, obviously, over the Bears, and the Lions are the best team in football in adjusted net yards per passing attempt differential, and the Bears are not last, but near last. What say you? Well, I think we both agree the Lions will and should and will win this game. Will they cover the 9.5 to open up Thanksgiving?
I'll say yes. And to be honest, I'm okay with bad games in the early Thanksgiving slots because those are just really good background noise moments when you're eating dinner. The night game has to be the good game because usually that's when you're done eating dinner and you're kind of sitting around and you want a good game to enjoy. But I'm good with kind of a bad early time slot game, but give me the Lions to win by 2 touchdowns.
I will take the Lions to cover the 9.5 points as well, too. What about moving on to the titillating? Can you say titillating on a podcast? What about the titillating game between the Giants and the Cowboys in Dallas? The Cowboys are favored by 3.5 points in this game.
It's going to be Cooper Rush, and will Tommy Cutlets start, or is it going to be Drew Lock?
I think it's probably going to be Lock on a short week like this. So. I think it's going to end up being Lock.
Good news, it does not matter. What's the line again? Cowboys
3.5
for Dallas.
Dallas favored at home. Yep.
Yeah, give me Dallas.
I will take this to be a field goal game. I'll take the Giants plus the 3.5 points on this one. All right. The most entertaining one that even Steeler fans will have potentially an eye on, the Miami Dolphins go to Lambeau Field for the nightcap. Packers favored by 3 over the Dolphins in this. This is interesting because Dolphins are right outside, I think, of the 17 playoff bubble at this point. A loss by them would could potentially help the Steelers down the line here. The Dolphins playing better football, obviously, with Tua back in there. The Packers really have been playing some good football of late. Packers at home at Lambeau on to close out Thanksgiving, favored by 3. Alex, what say you?
I like your Facenda impression. Speaking of which, I was watching a documentary last night, and there was the narrator, the voiceover. I was like, that name is super. That voice is super familiar. It was the guy that did the NFL Top 100 players. His name is Peter Coyote. Apparently, is his last name. And anyway, that means nothing. But I'm always a sucker for good voices and good narration. And of course, Facenda is so iconic with the NFL. To answer your question, getting back to that, I will take. Give me Dolphins are red hot. I'll take Miami.
All right, I'll go the other way. I'll take the Packers lay to 3 points. This has the makings of being just a 3-point game overall, probably, but I will take the Packers. So let's see, we both took the Lions. You took Dallas. I took the Giants, and then we're different on Dolphins and Packers. So that's our 3 games for Thanksgiving.
All right, enjoy the Thanksgiving day. Let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Let's see. Jeff Berg writes in, I think the loss against the Browns came down to one main thing, the line of scrimmage. The Browns seemed to own both sides of the ball. Maybe you could argue they did on Waitman's hellacious punt. The Browns were able to get short yardage when needed. Garrett got to us. We couldn't gain short yardage when needed. Watt basically had almost zero impact. Is that what y'all noticed on the All-22? I mean, I think you hit on a lot of key things there, Jeff. Absolutely. But if you want to talk about came down to one main thing, and you hit on a lot of, he says the line of scrimmage here. I mean, I don't think you never know how a game's going to progress and all like that. Look, when the Browns scored, their last touchdown of the game that they had scored, I kind of thought, man, that's over there. But the Steelers bounced back and got a touchdown, then intercepted Winston and went down and scored again. I vehemently thought that they are going to win this ball game at that point. And we're going to be talking about, boy, can you believe they won that rock fight in the snow?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can. I think you almost have to. The one main thing is you have to boil this down to that final possession that the Steelers had beginning around the 4-minute mark there and going 3 and out and having the bad punt. I think the one main thing, and you hate to bring back into Justin Fields and that play call and play down the field to George Pickens there, but this team not being able to control the football with the lead in the snow after coming back, 4 minutes left in the game, I consider that the one main thing. Now, he's not wrong. All these other things added up into this. But if you want to say one main thing, I just think it was the Steelers not being able to do anything there with essentially a chance to seal it.
Yeah, I think situationally that's a great thing to point to because Pittsburgh took up all of 50 seconds, I think, on that drive. I'm not sure how long that possession was. They had two
runs,
first
right?
And second down run and the third down incompletion. I forget how much time exactly came off, but it was not much in a 4-minute offense where you could close it out. Or even if you get a first down,
right,
really put Cleveland in a tough spot. They're burning timeouts. They're going to get the ball back with probably, under 2 minutes to go. And, still could win that game, needing only a field goal. But given the situation, the weather would be a lot tougher, obviously. So that is disappointing. But yeah, the line of scrimmage, it's fair. I mean, that's a game that Pittsburgh should have run the ball better than what they did. Cleveland has not been a good run defense this year. Don't have especially big people up front. Their linebacking core had injuries with JOK being out. It's a snow game. You got a couple of power backs. Your backfield's healthy with Najee and Warren and Patterson. You're using the Fields package a little bit. Like that's a game where you should have had a lot more success running the football. And Pittsburgh's had that at times this year. They got up to a bit faster start with the run game this year than the last 2 seasons, but it's just not been consistent. And then you look at some of the efficiency numbers, the run success rate, some of the EPA numbers on the run game. It is really, really poor, much worse than the past 2 seasons. And so that is a problem for a team that their whole theory of the case was let's build up the O-line, let's run the ball really well and build off of that. And the run game still has not gotten the consistent traction and efficiency they were expecting.
You have a post coming up on that, right?
It's in a post today that's already gone up, I think, about 3 stats that signal trouble for the Steelers and 3 that signal success. And yeah, Pittsburgh is, what are they? They are 28th in the NFL in run expected, which is just points expected, how much the run game is benefiting the offense. And they are 29th in run success rate at 40.1%.
All right, this one from Rick says, is the ability to get pressure with 4 up front making them more predictable in recent weeks? A false sense of pressure can be just as productive. If they are not showing unpredictable fronts and the offense can easily designate the rushers or pressure, could that be the issue of lack of recent pressure/sack production? Or maybe once Highsmith is back, all is cured. What say you to Rick?
I mean, I would say they've shown some more aggressive looks really since week 7 or so. They've shown some of those mug looks, and they blitzed a little bit more to contain mobile quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. So I get the premise. I think that isn't as impactful the last couple of weeks, maybe a bit more in the Cleveland game. So yeah, I don't know exactly where I fall in on that answer, but I would say that Pittsburgh has shown some more aggressive stuff in recent weeks.
I agree. All right, one last one from Bryce on a bad loss to the Browns. He says he actually does not have a problem with Tomlin taking the penalty at the end of the game to back up the Browns 3rd and 7. His defense has been horrible on 4th down, and he wanted the longer 3rd down to get the stop to force the longer field goal. He says, I get that rationale, but for the love of God, can you please explain why Tomlin is so in love with zone in that situation? He says, man up, don't pass off, and leave no chance of communication issue or bunch. Instead, Joey passes off, and Minka is late. Just awful. Great job. Number 2, great job, Alex, on your Arthur Smith breakdown on the site. Do you think he's hit a rough patch and regressed these last 2 games? Seems he's too slow to find answers and getting a little uneven with these decisions, i.e. the fade to Patterson for the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, I would say the last couple of games have not been as strong, and this is not, throwing in the towel on Arthur Smith, but you want to see some better game plans. I think the run game scheme was just really poor against Cleveland overall. So short week, I know that creates its own challenges, but Cleveland had the same challenges to deal with, and I felt like they dealt with that better. So yeah, I would say there's been some regression, and we'll just see how it looks against the Bengals and going forward.
What did you think about the zone 3rd and 7?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back and watch it to double check the coverage on that play. Were they definitely in zone, or was it kind of a combination? I felt like there was a lot of man on the majority of that play. I mean, I get the idea of Porter passing off. He points to Minka. I don't know the exact particulars on that play. I mean, Porter's out leveraged. You trust Minka to help out and make that play. So, I mean, I wouldn't really call that zone. It might be a bit more of a match coverage type situation. And there's a lot of man coverage I'm seeing being played by Beanie and Dante Jackson and Peyton Wilson. So I would probably disagree with the premise a little bit there.
I'm transferring some files right now over to another hard drive, so I can't pull that play specifically.
I can send it to you if you really want to, if we can vamp here, if you really want to take a look at it.
Let me look at it again real quick.
I will need a second for me to screen capture it and upload and all that fun type of stuff.
Let me see if I got anything else while you do that real quick.
Yeah, maybe one more email. If not, tell me your favorite Thanksgiving dish if you have one. I know you got one out there.
Yes. I'm not a stuffing guy. I've never been a stuffing guy.
Stuffing's so good. You're missing out.
Never a stuffing guy. I'm meat and potatoes. I've always been a meat and potatoes kid. So, and once again, we do the honey baked ham thing. I like their smoked sliced turkey, their ham, obviously. We get mashed potatoes, corn. We have 2 pies every year. We have pecan. Do you call it pecan or do you call it pecan? But
I rarely ever say the word, but I guess pecan, probably.
I
You don't do turkey? You don't have an actual turkey?
No,
Or you
no,
get
no, no, no. They're smoked turkeys. I like easy because obviously we got things going on. Sometimes there's a Steelers game, and obviously
right?
don't want to get interrupted. I don't want to spend all day cooking and all like that. But nice and easy. I think their stuff is fantastic. Corn niblets, two pies, ice cream.
Ooh, I like ice cream.
Because we make kind of a la mode on the apple pie.
Nice.
Here's a funny story about pecans. I would not touch pecans as a kid at all, and we even had a local the Catholic church that we went to had a big pecan grove in the back, huge acres of pecan trees. And every year we had to, as a family, go out and pick up pecans for the church to sell and all like that. I absolutely hated that. Would not eat pecans as a child and all like that. And on through my adolescent, I don't think I ate pecan pie for the first time until I was probably in my 30s.
Mm.
And oh man, well, I was missing out for sure. So I love pecan pie, love apple pie, and all like that. So I'm meat and potatoes on Thanksgiving. My wife likes dressing. I don't eat it. I think sometimes she has some like green bean casserole or something like that. I don't like that either. But meat and potatoes for me on Thanksgiving.
All right, good deal. I sent you the clip there if you want to
Oh,
check it
okay.
out.
Let me
Your
check it
thoughts
out.
on the coverage there. But hopefully everyone has a great Thanksgiving, and hopefully can get a win on
All
Sunday for the
right.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wilson follows over into the slot there. That's man.
Yeah, no, again, the Porter is again. I agree, passing that off to Minka, but
Right.
he's out leveraged and there's help there, and so it's probably a combination element. But I wouldn't call that a zone coverage play call.
Well, Porter lets him inside.
Yeah, he's got outside leverage. Yeah, he's got help on the other side there with Minka. That's my quick view
Yeah.
of the play.
Okay. Yeah.
But you wouldn't call that zone as a play call here, playing zone here. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if we got anything else here. I think we got all of it there. Position. We talked about Connor from Ryan the other day. All right. I think we hit all of it. So with all that, look, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. A lot to be thankful for. I'm thankful to have Alex and the rest of this great Steelers Depot staff. I'm thankful to have all the listeners that we have on this podcast and all the readers and all like that. So hope everybody enjoys Thanksgiving, gets to watch a lot of football, has great dinners and all like that. And Alex and I will be back on Friday. We've got a beat writer hopefully lined up to break down the Bengals game. We'll dive deeper into the All-22 and give our side of things. We'll give the rest of our picks. We'll talk about Coordinator Thursday, the injury report, everything that goes along with that. So until, let's see, Friday, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. So until Friday, happy Thanksgiving once again. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.